Good morning. Um, I wanted to do my birth story slash well, I guess the beginning, leading up to me being pregnant. Because that's a story to tell. So pretty much, December of 2017, I had switched dosages of the pill, and by January, right after my birthday's in the beginning. My body, I could tell that something like my body was not liking this new dosage. And so by the time the end of this January comes around, which is Desi's birthday, we're having a party for him, and I start spotting, and I'm like, okay, cool, I get my period early. So I was supposed to get a couple days after the party or something. So I was like, okay, cool, it's just coming early. Well, the next day, I had nothing. I just spotted for those for a couple hours the previous day. So I was like, okay, maybe because this dosage, it's just my body's trying to figure out what's going on or something. Never got a period. I was like, okay. So beginning of February, I go to the OB. They take a pregnancy test and it's negative. They tell me to take a test each week. So I take a test each freaking week. So by the end of February, still getting negative, still not having a period. I go in and they're like, they take urine and blood. And guess what? It was negative. So 5 pregnancy tests later, still negative, still no period. What the heck? Hayden, was that you? Hayden! Okay, he's still alive. I heard a crashing sound, and I was like, what the heck? Anyway, where was I? Okay, yes. 5 pregnancy tests later, and, no period. And we're just like, okay, so now what? So they're like, okay, go ahead and stop taking the birth control. And when you get a period, let us know. Well, spoiler alert, I didn't get a period. I got pregnant that week of stopping the birth control. And all of March, had no idea. April comes around. Easter was literally April 1st, in 2018. And I was, drinking. I had Jello shot syringes. I had 2 or 3 of them. So it wasn't like I was heavily drinking, but I was still consuming alcohol. And then I want to say the second week of April, we had went up. Me and my roommate at the time, my friend, her and I had went up to Illinois. And the day that we had gone, I needed to eat, and so I was like, okay, let me eat or whatever. And so I eat half of the ramen that I made, and I was like, okay, this is not normal. I was getting sick from eating the ramen, so I was like, what? I never get sick with ramen. What is going on? Didn't really think of much, and I was like, okay, whatever. So the whole drive there, where I'm not eating. The whole trip, not eating. Drive back, not eating. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we get back home, and I'm like, alright, I'm still not eating. I've noticed that my bras weren't fitting. And so jokingly, I had asked Harley, our dog, and was like, hey, I'm asking her, is there a baby in my belly? Blah, blah, just asking her. And of course she's gonna get excited. So I'm like, okay, this can't be a yes. She's just excited. She thinks I'm just, playing with her, loving her, And I was like, but then I sat there and I'm like, okay, but again, I've barely been eating. My bras aren't fitting. She's been, kind of protecting me and laying by my stomach. I'm like, it has to be. So I tell Desi. He's like, no, he's denying that I'm pregnant. And I'm like, I'm pregnant, dude. These are the symptoms. And he's like, no, you're not. And so, and mind you, I've never had period symptoms. My whole entire life of having a period, since the age of 8, I have yet to have any like period symptoms. The only symptom I've ever had is like before and after I don't eat, or I eat too much. Um, and so that's what made me think, okay, you know, like when I was barely eating, I was like, okay, maybe I'm getting my period. Well, I know that, you know, your boobs, you know, they're getting sore or tender or whatever, you know, that it's a symptom. So I'm thinking maybe that's, I was just getting my period. And obviously I did not. And so finally I took a test, and clear as day, and I'll post a picture. Or I'll put in a picture. Clear as day that I'm pregnant. And I run out of the bathroom and I like screamed at Desi, and I just I was like, I freaking told you, I freaking knew it. Yeah, I like was pretty much yelling at him, like saying, you know, that I knew it. And at that point, we actually didn't talk about it for like a week or two. Um, and so when I went, like I had called, you know, doctor's office or my OB to make an, you know, appointment to confirm it, get an ultrasound so I know how far along I was. But we just didn't talk about it for like a week or two. And so finally, we I go to the appointment and they're like, okay, well, when was your last period? And I was like, you guys not remember me being here in February? Like, I know it's in your system. And so we put it as December of 2017 because that was my last period. But because they couldn't, you know, obviously pinpoint it without seeing, you know, how far along, you know, the ultrasound, we had to go off of my last period. And so they put the due date for like October, and I was like, yeah, no. Or like, I was like, maybe it was September, October, I don't remember. But yeah, they had, and then so I was trying to get them to, you know, do the ultrasound, and they kept arguing with me like, well, you're not, like, if since you're, because it was all negative in February, you know, we don't know how far along you are now. I was like, okay, exactly, that's why you need to get me in, so we know how far along I am. Like, I told him, like, I've been drinking like the last month, like, you need to get me in. I want to make sure that everything's still fine. But they kept arguing with me, and I'm like, whatever. So they made an appointment, and then like a couple days later, I had called another doctor's office and was like, you know, I told them what was happening, and they're like, yeah, let's get you in. And so they get me in. And at that point, I think it was like, at this point, it's the beginning of May, because that was like the earliest they had. And I was like, cool. So they had given me an ultrasound. I figured I'd just show you. So yeah, this was my little man. At this point, they had told me that I was 9 weeks. Yeah, 9 weeks I was with him. I mean, you can, like, clearly see, like, you could see, you know, a little human being, and, like, you can kind of tell it's a boy, right? Well, when I tell you, when I finally went, so, like I said, they told me that, you know, I'm 9 weeks, and I was like, alright, cool. So then I go to my actual OB. I'm trying to cover my name and stuff. What is that? Do you, like, what? The difference in sonograms. Like, do you... I was so mad. I was like, what kind of, you know, sonogram is this? But anyway. And this was taken almost a month apart. I went to these. This was May 3rd, 2018. This was May 29th. So you think that within a month, this should be bigger than this one. I mean, I know they grow fast, but they grow slow at the same time. You know what I mean? But So I actually ended up not going back to my OB just because of the experience I was having with them, with the arguing in the beginning. And then when I went for this ultrasound, like, she was just, the way she was, like, the nurse was talking to me or whatever, like, I never actually saw the doctor. I had never seen the doctor from that OB. Which I come to find out a few months ago that he only sees you once you are physically, like, confirmed pregnant, and after that, and everything. And, like, if it's a concern. But for the most part, when you go in there, you're going to see the nurses more. And I was like, okay, well, you know, again, like, I just didn't like the atmosphere at that time. I mean, that was, 4 years ago. I mean, I know it's different now because I've been back since then, and the atmosphere is different now than it was 4 years ago. But anyway, so like I said, May 3rd, found out I was 9 weeks along. So when I had taken that first pregnancy test, I was only 6 weeks. And so I stuck with the first people that I went with. And I loved them my whole pregnancy. I loved them. And actually, I want to say it was the day. Okay, Memorial Weekend was the 28th. Okay, so actually the day before I went for that ultrasound, I was actually in the hospital that weekend, like Memorial Weekend, from food poisoning. And like I had told them that too. I was like, well, I actually just was in the hospital like yesterday or whatever it was, because the 29th was a Tuesday. So that Monday was obviously, Memorial Day, and so I had told them, like, hey, I was in the hospital last night, or whatever it was. And they're like, oh, I don't know I forgot what they said, but when I told them that I was in the hospital, what they said to me, I was so mad that that's why I forget what they said, but it just, at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. But anyway, I had gotten food poisoning Memorial Weekend, and that was a whole experience because the nurse that was trying to give me an IV, he walks in and he's like, hey, I'm going to put it in your hand. And I said no, because he wanted to put it like right here, somewhere over here. And I said, no, you're not. I want it, in my elbow. And he's like, no, I'm going to put it in your hand. I said, no, you're going to put it in my elbow. I don't want it in my hand. You're going to put it in my elbow. He's like, well, because you're pregnant, you need it. I'm like, but I am only like, okay, wait. I'm 13 weeks at this point, I was like, it's the very beginning. There's no need for you to put it in my hand. I don't want it in my hand. I want it in my elbow. Like, so me and him are arguing, and and as we're arguing, he's attempting to do this. And so at this point, Desi's, like, goes to tell, like, he gets out of the room and goes tells the other nurses what's going on. And so they walk in, they're like, dude, what is going on? And like, but like, because he was trying to do it, he just couldn't get it. So by the time that they had come in and yelled at him pretty much and did it, like, and another nurse came in and put it in my elbow, by the time they were done, I literally had a bruise forming. I had a lump on my hand. It was so bad. And of course, they're like, if she's telling you no, do not put it there. Like, there's no reason, like, because he kept saying, I have to. And they're like, we don't have to. Like, it was a whole thing. Besides that, my pregnancy was really easy, and I hate bragging about it because I know there's so many women out there who struggle to get pregnant, who hated their pregnancy, had a lot of issues during their pregnancies. I hate saying, oh yeah, my pregnancy was easy. Like, I hate that. But I know I'm lucky. I know that, and that's why I hate bragging about it, and I don't try to brag about it. But it's like, kind of hard not to say that I had an easy pregnancy without saying I had an easy pregnancy. So anyway, fast forward to November of 2018. That weekend before I had Hayden, we had moved into a new apartment. And so that weekend, like, I mean, at this point, I'm pretty much 9 months pregnant at this point. And, Desi's doing everything pretty much. Our friends are helping us. And I just did, like, the pillows and, like, the lightest things ever. Was keeping Harley out of the way, directing traffic pretty much. And then that Monday, November 12th, yeah, November 12th, I don't know, I'm looking at a calendar. I had a dentist appointment to fill my cavities. And they had me on my back for 3 hours. Why it took them so long, I don't know. Because, they knew I was pregnant. I had obviously told them, it was kind of hard not to tell that I was pregnant to begin with. And, like, the dentist I went, like, they were, prenatal dentist people, like, they know. But yeah, no, I was on my back for, like, 3 hours. And so that Tuesday, went to my 37-week appointment. And they're like they did my blood pressure, and it was high. And so the second time around, it was still a little high. And so they sent me to the room. My doctor comes in, and literally, she opens the door and goes, "Honey, how are you feeling?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm perfect." Like, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna take your blood pressure one more time, and depending on, I want you to go get induced, but I'm gonna take your blood pressure one more time." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Well, it's been high, and we don't want you to get, preeclampsia." And I was like, "Mm-hmm." So she takes my blood pressure, and of course it's skyrocketed. At this point, I'm like, "Look, do it again, because, you told me I have to get induced, and, now I'm freaking out. Like, let me calm down first, and then you could retake it." So she let me calm down. She retook it, and it was pretty much still high. And I was like, "Well, crap." So at this point, I haven't even eaten yet. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "I haven't eaten. Can I go eat?" And she goes, "No." And I'm like, "So I can?" And she's like, "No, we don't want you to have the risk of, I'm like, so third time I go, I whispered it. I was like, "So you're saying I can't eat?" Because, like, she's nodding yes, but she's saying no. So I was like, "So I can?" So at this point, Desi's like, "Yes, you can eat." She's saying yes, but she has to say no out loud. And she's like, "Yeah." So at this point, she's like, "Yeah, I can't." The walls. I was like, It took me forever. Yeah. So, my whole, pregnancy, my cravings, the whole pregnancy, was chicken nuggets and hash browns. Anybody that came over always brought me chicken nuggets and hash browns, especially my mom. And so, of course, we go get the hospital bed, in the car seat, and go get me some chicken nuggets and hash browns. And then we are off to the hospital. So at this point, it's about noon at this point, and Desi pretty much, like, he goes into the room with me, and then we're just sitting there, we're waiting, and they're like, "Well, we're gonna check on your blood pressure for a while." And he's like, "Okay, well then, if you don't mind, can I leave and come back?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And this is obviously pre-COVID. And so, he asked me, he wanted to make sure that I was okay with it. And I was like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, if this child's coming in the next, few hours, or tomorrow, next 2 days, like, his room isn't set up. Like, we have nothing set up. Again, we had just moved. And so, he's like, "Okay, let me know, obviously keep me updated." And I was like, "Duh." So he leaves about 12:30, like, he was there for like a half hour. So he leaves, and about 2 p.m., they come back in, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, you're gonna be getting induced." And I was just like, "Okay." So I text my mom, text Desi, and Desi's like, "Well, do I have to come in?" And I was like, "No, not really. Like, they're just gonna be putting a balloon in me, to help me get, dilated." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm almost done, at least with Hayden's room, so I'll be there, shortly." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So, they put this balloon in me, and they're like, "Okay, because at this point I'm 1 centimeter." And so they're like, "Okay, this is gonna help you get to 4 centimeters." And I said, "Okay, cool." Well, I could feel it moving, like, coming out of me. Cause that's what, when they said it was gonna come out at 4 centimeters, I was like, okay, cool. But like I said, it kept moving. So when they would come in and check on me, I was like, hey, I can feel it moving. And so they would like tug at it and it would move. And I was like, you guys just moved it. And they're like, no, we didn't. I said, yes, you did. I can feel it. You moved it. So this happened for like a good like 2-3 hours. And the last time they go to check on it, it just comes out. And I was like, hmm. So they check me, and I'm at 3 centimeters. They're like, oh, it wasn't supposed to come out yet. I was like, and I kept telling you for the last 2-3 hours that it's been coming out, and you keep pulling it out the more you checked on it. I hated those nurses that day. I don't know what, I mean, I did love the nurses, but not some of those. And so at this point, that's when they gave me the Pitocin. And actually, by the time they took it out, like that balloon out of me, Desi had come back at this point. So he was like, really? I get the Pitocin in about 2 a.m. Yeah, 2 a.m. on the 14th of November. I said, all right, give me the epidural. This is where it gets. So they come in, you know, they send my mom and Desi out, and they're like, okay, it should only take, you know, roughly 15 to 45 minutes to do this. So they're like, okay, cool. 2 hours later, they finally get the epidural in me. For 2 hours, they were stabbing my back, trying, like, poking and getting it everywhere. And then, again, by this point, like, after, like, the 45-minute mark, my phone is blowing up. The door is getting, like, nurses are coming in and asking, like, why is it taking so long? And they're like, well, we just can't find a spot. And so, 2 hours of poking my back, they finally get it. And my mom doesn't come back in, and my mom's like, he fell asleep on the floor, waiting. And I was like, and I'm like, I don't doubt it. They're like, what took so long? And I told them, and they're like, what the heck? I was like, yeah, I know. So at this point, it's 4 a.m. Nobody's getting any sleep at this point, because, and by 10 a.m., I've starting to really feel contractions on my left side. My whole right side was numb. I felt nothing on the right side of my body, but I can feel contraction on the left side, my back, like my stomach. I felt every contraction. So like I'm half and half at this point, and I'm telling them, I'm like, I can feel like. So we're like raising me up. We're up in the the Pitocin, or the epidural, whatever. Like we're trying everything at this point to get, like, they lay me on my left side, because I didn't want to get another epidural. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not sitting through that again. Like, that took 2 hours, and they're like, when I first told them that, because at this point, shift change, and they're like, oh my god, like, yeah, it was a whole thing. So we tried for like ever to get me to get that left side to finally, at this point, I think it's noon. I think it's like noon, or maybe 1 p.m. at this point. And finally at 1:45, 2 p.m., I said, all right, just give me the epidural. Just give me another one. I can't take this anymore. And this time it took about like 15 minutes. Through the actual contractions that I was actually feeling now, it took 15 minutes to get that second epidural in. And that is when I found out that I had scoliosis. So now the next child, I have to let them know, like, hey, I have scoliosis. So like I said, about this time, it's like 2 p.m.-ish. 2:15, 2:30, whatever. And at this point, Desi's sister drove down from Illinois. She pretty much got here in like 12 hours. That's an 18-hour drive. Just saying. So she literally she gets to the hospital about 3:30. Maybe it was like right after I got the epidural, maybe. Um, and Hayden decides he's coming out. Literally, he waited for his godmother to get there. He knew that his godmother was coming and when to come. And it was the funniest thing ever. It was like I said, we got the second epidural, and 2 hours later, like an hour later, like she gets there, and then he's like, all right, let's go. Like, he was ready to go. Yeah. So he came about I know it was 4. It was like 4:36, I think. No. Was it? No, 4:35? I don't even remember. This is sad. Only reason I'm saying that I don't remember right now is because his weight, they told me, like, there's 3 different weights for him on every single piece of paper we have from that day. Like, from November 14th, there are so many, like, different, like, weights. Like, the little piece, like, the welcome, like, thingy that they put on the little cart for the baby to lay in. It says, like, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, but then, and everything else, it's either, like, 7.1 or 7.5. So when I see these posts, like, oh, what was the birth weight? I don't know, because there's 3 different ones for that same exact day. Like, it's just, I don't know. So I just go by 7 pounds, 3 ounces all the time. Okay, it was 4:35, I think. I don't even know. But, yeah. It literally took me, for being a first-time mom, I did not expect, I was technically in labor, for 26 hours. From being from being induced to having him, it was 26 hours. But it took me 10 pushes. And I was so proud of myself. I'm like, it took me 9 pushes to get the kid's head out. And then that 10th push obviously was the child. I'm not bragging about that because, I'm proud of myself, for doing it in 10 pushes, because I know it takes, hours sometimes to push out a baby. So, for me to get 10 pushes out, that's freaking awesome, and, like, I'm proud of all these moms who have done it in, like, 2 or less. Like, I wish it was as easy. Oh my god. Anyway, so yes, that is the leading up to being pregnant and my birth story. Yeah. I guess thanks for listening, and all the other moms out there that are new moms who are pregnant or have already had their children, proud of you. And to the new moms, you got this. Birth is scary, but it is all worth it in the end. And I know a lot of people who have had, like, the painful pregnancies and really bad birth stories and all that, obviously it does suck, but it is obviously worth it in the end. So yeah, just want to say good luck to all my new moms out there, and baby dust to all the mamas trying to conceive, and I love you all.